Welcome to Writing the Wrong Way, the podcast for writers who strive to be bold and readers who crave something new. I'm your host, Jonathan Ball. I want to thank you for being here, and I want us to stay in touch. So subscribe to this podcast, then go to writingthewrongway.com and enter your best email to receive the Martian Embassy Missive, my bi-weekly newsletter where I let you know what's happening on Mars, where we're always making big plans. Join the Martians so you don't get left out of the invasion at writingthewrongway.com. And as a special bonus, I'll send you a free book. Speaking of books, my new book is The Lightning of Possible Storms, a collection of short fiction that reads like a novel. It includes stories about a mad scientist trying to steal his son's dreams, a story where a personification of capitalism is trying to impress his boss by winning a contest at work, a story about a Hollywood producer who just decides to adapt a bunch of explosions, and many other stories, some funny, some terrifying. Salima Nawaz says that is cheerfully horrifying and full of the unexpected. Suzette Mayer says it's beautifully written and expertly composed. And I say, it's time you read this book. I've been working on it for almost 20 years, and I'm excited to share it with you. So please go to possiblestorms.com. Again, that's possiblestorms.com, and you'll find out a lot more about this book and some of the bonuses that you can get when you buy this book. Let's get on with the show. We're going to talk about working together. So let's go around and just introduce, who's talking, do the roll call. I'm Jonathan Ball. Either I'm your host or I'm your guest, depending on whether this is on my podcast or somebody else, or Gregory's podcast. But I'm Jonathan Ball, and
I'm Gregory Chomichuk, known professionally as GMB Chomichuk.
My name is Radchenka.
My name is Kaul.
And we're going to talk about working together. So Greg was just talking about this, cool idea he has that he's done in the past of just, getting people together to kind of come up with stories and come up with ideas and just, find different ways of working together. And something you and I have talked about a lot recently is just like how, we really want to do this project or that project, but what we're really just like, as we get older, not to sound like old men, but like you were saying this a little while ago, that like as time goes on, you just want to like work with people that you want to work with more than anything else. Like that's sort of the thing you have your eye on the most in some ways.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree. Like I used to, when I was young, be like thinking of myself and very much of the mind that, I got to do everything solo. I got to be the genius. I got to do whatever. And the more like I get into things, the more I just like, I see you just got to work with other people. Like that's more important than everything else. And just finding the right people to work with is just the hard thing. And then just finding a process of like how to work with those people. So I just think that's an interesting topic. And then we've also all four of us here have been working together on different things in different ways.
Well, yeah, and so one of the things we were talking about is this concept that I put together called 13 Horrors, which is really briefly on the 13th of every month, an hour before midnight, I get a bunch of creative people together and we race the clock to midnight on the 13th to come together, to put together a complete story, pitch, or idea by using a method that is sort of an amalgam of a thing that's called the +1, where once an idea is stated, it's accepted, and you can only change that idea by adding to it, not by subtracting from it. Right? And so what it allows people to do is everyone has their say, but everyone is paying really close attention to what the other person is saying, and you just kind of race towards the finish line.
It's improv rules, right?
It's kind of like improv
yes
rules.
And.
Yeah, it's like yes and stuff. But it kind of came out of, what you're talking about is finding people that you like working with. When you're like 10 years old, you find your friends on the playground kind of by accident, right? Or in settings that kind of come up naturally. And as you get older, there are less and less playgrounds where you are welcome to hang out.
Well, you just don't have time to go to the playground anymore.
So the last time I did this, which was a couple of years back, I found out by accident that it became a really fun way to get to know different creative people from different fields and come together with no strings attached to just make up something for no good reason. And we would usually meet at a bar or a restaurant or any of that, and that's all, maybe over for the next little while, and we'll do it remotely or whatever. It might be easier to get people to meet just before midnight remotely than it was to get them together in downtown Winnipeg just before midnight. But it just gives people a way to flex a creative muscle from outside of, like, we had songwriters, we had poets, playwrights, filmmakers, comic book people, storytellers, dancers. Like, you didn't have to be a writer necessarily to be able to plus one in that kind of environment, right? And it just becomes a really fun way. Now everyone enters it under the sort of proviso that everyone agrees that whatever idea they contribute to, everyone is equally allowed to use it at their own discretion. So if you come up with a story at 13 Horrors and you run away and make a movie with it, none of us are owed anything except our names in the credits. If I run away and make a comic from it, none of us is owed anything except their name in the credits. So you give credits where it's due. You credit 13 Horrors, but everyone is just thrown in. And so it became useful to bring people who had a potential to do something with it, right? And I'm more in that field now where, like, the people I would invite were all people that could, if they had a story idea, they could go and do something with it.
But also not a paranoia about collaborating.
Yeah.
Which I see it in a lot of people when I teach creative writing. I see this a lot. They have a paranoia about collaboration and about someone's going to take my idea.
You stole my idea, John.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God, it's my $1 million idea.
Oh,
and you took
I
it.
would have got so rich.
Well, that totally comes from something we said way earlier before we put it on a podcast here, was the idea that everybody thinks the thing they have in their head is the piece of gold.
The golden goose.
Yeah, and
Right.
it ain't.
It's not. No one has a good idea. No one's ever had a good idea. People just have thousands of awesome ideas.
I like to point out that Hamlet is a terrible idea. In fact, T.S. Eliot wrote an essay explaining how bad Hamlet is as an idea. But of course, the execution of Hamlet you can't deny. Oh, T.S. Eliot did deny it. I should point out. But let me just to kind of, before we kind of delve further down that rabbit hole, let me just one thing I think that is a really practical question that I get asked a lot from people is, like, how do you find somebody to collaborate with? Especially if we're talking comics, which we've all been kind of working on comics together recently. I got asked just the other day, like, where did you find these people to do this comics stuff with? Like, how did you pitch them the idea, what have you? And I was like, well, you can just pay them money. I go, that's the easiest way to pitch them the idea. But, like, there is, like, that question, I think, which is, like, how do you, like, even just find somebody or vet somebody in terms of, like, do I want to work with this person? I'm curious to know just more about how you, Stephen, and you, Lyndon, kind of started working together, and, like, what, like, just because you guys have done
a lot
of stuff together, but you're going into another book right now together. You're working on, you're pitching out a book right now. You've got a book, that you guys did. You published it together. And then you also recently resold it to be republished, right? And so I feel like that's maybe it'd be useful to just kind of talk a bit about how you guys started working together, or maybe even just like how, like, Lyndon, you started working with Gregory, how I started working with Gregory, and how I started working with Stephen. Like, I think just like that kind of like
we can delve into
that would be kind of useful, I think.
Like, with Lyndon, I remember like it was yesterday. Like, there we were just rounding Saturn in our ship, and he came out of the back, and we saw each other, and we're like, let's make a comic, and that was it. No, but like, just gotta be in the same place.
You mean like all collaborations are essentially a work of fiction, even in how they come together?
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Well, you tell the story so many times, but it what matters, in my opinion, like for Lyndon and I. See many other podcasts. We worked together. We went to a San Diego Comic-Con together, and one thing we had in common was comics, and we just.
When you say we worked together, we were bartenders.
Together. Yeah. Bartenders together, which in itself is a profession that brings people closer and forces you to really rely on other people.
We had a very small crew of people where we worked.
Yeah. You versus 100 drunks every night.
It's like zombies outside.
Drunks with money. No.
Lots of money. Yeah.
But
So it's just like comics.
yeah, but seriously, it just you just gotta know. Like, it's not the people you know, but you just got to start to know people. Like, I think we're lucky enough in Winnipeg that
It's a great community.
there's a huge community that like kind of just exists right under the vibrations, and you can just start to know people, and you just meet more and more people who think creatively, and you start throwing ideas at each other.
Yeah.
That's what we did. We just threw ideas at each other and landed on something that worked.
But you got to get around people who actually do things, right?
Yeah, but
Wait,
I
I have a qualifying
Well, we didn't-
question.
we
and I want
do
to back up
things
on the whole thing
before.
also, but yes.
Yeah, I have a qualifying question that I haven't heard the answer on any of those multiple podcasts you've answered that question on before. Why do you keep working together? Because I think that's at the heart of when people are saying, like, oh, how do I find collaborators? They're often asking because they've tried to work with people and it's gone nowhere. So why does it keep working?
It's like a good relationship. We listen to each other.
Yeah, we work well together. I mean, you have to understand with that sort of question, it's not anything that we've ever kind of sat back and wondered about.
How do you resolve conflicts between yourselves on creative issues? Like, what is it? How are those conflicts? What are they? How do they get resolved?
It's +1. It's what you were talking about. It's someone throws an idea out, and the other person, if they don't like it, that's a bad idea. It's like, I know there's a nugget there. Where is it, and how can we add to it? And we just, I don't know.
If you look at when we first started talking about Infinite Universe, which was our first book, you came to me with an idea for a story that looks nothing like the story we ended up with.
Yeah, I think there's some bones that are still there, but it's a cyborg now. And like, it was just I just gave this idea, and then he would say something like, he'd be like, okay, but like, what if they did like this? And I go, that's the thing I was looking for. Like,
Right.
It's almost like each of us has half the puzzle pieces to the same puzzle without knowing it, and we find out that when someone comes with an idea that maybe isn't totally baked or complete, that once we start putting our heads together to develop the story, we both end up with a story that we like.
It's interesting.
Okay.
One last thing to add to the note of how do we keep working together. I think that's like almost like a practice thing. We like, after doing it so much, we understand almost how each other comes up with an idea. Mm-hmm. And like, for the thing we're working on right now, we had to hammer out, like, it was after work. I worked just over here. We had an hour to bang out like the full intro of this comic, which would effectively set the tone for this comic. And literally within an hour, like, it looked like a movie. We were pacing around the yard and acting out scenes and
trying to figure out the paneling and the composition.
And like, I don't know, it was cool. It was like an hour, and we
Do you guys take reference shots when you're doing that, or that's just like mental pictures?
No, it's just
mental pictures.
Yeah.
Just because we had to see if it worked in the context of a page,
Right.
and it did. It did.
It's
So, like,
interesting.
in acting, they call that just putting it on its feet, right? It's something I learned working in these theater projects, something that was sort of explained to me and I kind of learned by watching it happen and then doing it, is that when you want to know if a scene works, you put it on its feet.
Yeah.
Right? It's not enough to write it out. It's you got to be standing up, you got to be delivering the line with a little bit of gusto.
Yeah.
And then when it falls flat, you hear it immediately fall out of the mouth of the actor. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a technique that we kind of stumbled into when we started on the 6-page comic. Tomorrow's Escape, our short comic that we did, is we were actually sitting exactly where we were right now, and we had to come up with a story idea in a couple hours so that we could get to work.
I think, we only budgeted a couple hours for it.
Yeah, and Steve even had brought his sketchbook and was essentially thumbnailing, but the idea was that we were doing all the thumbnails, but also we were doing a lot of the compositions with ourselves to figure out how it would fit on the page.
So we had to get that plan because I didn't have a lot. The way we budgeted, I didn't have a lot of time to really sit and
Think about it.
plan every little bit. So we had to do that all at once. So it was like we almost figured out the story for each panel. or each page, because we broke it up. Each page was its own story. Yeah.
I have an important collaborating question.
Oh no.
Have you ever had to fight over money?
No.
Have you ever had anything successful enough that you didn't know who was owed what?
No.
So
I think
you guys need to. My advice to you is you need to have that conversation early.
Well, you have to remember when we first published.
Because you keep working. You guys are eventually going to have something. You don't stop working. You keep making books. Eventually, you're going to have something that hits and makes some money. And it doesn't have to be like Monopoly level money. It can just be suddenly you got $25,000, and should you just give it all to the artist because he's the one that put in the most effort?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at
story writers,
if we want to, no, don't. When we did Infinite Universe, we had a really strong launch with it. We made.
We made our money back.
We made our money back. Well, we made a good,
I think by now we have.
We have by now, but we made a good chunk of money right up front. And when we had printed the book, we had each paid half of the print cost.
Right.
Now, when we started to make that money back, you took the first chunk of the money we made back.
I felt really bad about it too.
That's fine.
No, you shouldn't.
But that was what happened. Was we made a bunch of money right at the front.
Yeah.
And
that was your agreement.
That we were going to split the money. The agreement.
Well,
the agreement was initially just
we knew what each was technically owed.
Yeah, and we would split the money that we made evenly. But we made a bunch of money up front, and we agreed that Steven should take the first chunk of money that we made.
Well, let's talk specifically about this in a bit more detail. So you're coming into an interesting point, which is one, when somebody starts to collaborate with another person, they really should take some time to put an agreement together. But also, something that you need to think through is how is that agreement going to age? It's like me and Steven had an agreement for the Dirk Dirksen comic that we were starting to do. Our agreement initially was I think it was a 75-25 split, and then he was also going to get a page rate. But then after you and I were talking more, I just was let's just make it a 50-50 split plus the page rate. Well, because what's going to happen down the line is if there's a disproportion, say the thing is super successful,
right.
Well, down the line it's not even in my best interest to have more of it, because he'll just say, well, fuck it, I'm not going to draw more art until we renegotiate the contract. Right? Because why wouldn't you? So you got to think not just what makes sense now, but what's going to make sense if the thing does go successful.
Yeah.
And sometimes that even means I should have less money because then we won't get into as many arguments.
Right. Well, yeah. You need to, part of this conversation of how do you find collaborators is that you need to find people that make you excited to make things.
Yes.
100%.
That part's, and in a lot of ways, that part's easy. Finding people who are also excited about the stuff that you're interested in has never been easier. Thank you, Internet.
Right, nowadays.
Finding people who can deliver on that excitement, a much smaller percentage, but they're out there. Finding people who can put their ego aside if it suddenly makes money, much more difficult.
Yeah.
Right? And that is why you need to have those agreements figured out ahead of time.
And it was on the other side of when you're talking about the agreement between you and I, Jonathan.
Just as an example.
You are the first person I've professionally, outside of commissions, I've professionally collaborated with outside of
thank you.
Linden. When I got that contract, I read it and I had this same kind of thought. I was like, this is great for now, but I don't know if it's going to age right, but I just don't know how to handle this. So that's why I was saying I just want Lyndon to look at this, so and then we talked about it. I'm like, see, it doesn't age well. And then you're like, just tell him that. And then you texted me an hour later.
Well, I talked to Gregory, and he's like, this isn't going to age well, because we had a similar thing. And I was like,
you're like, how about this? And I'm like, that's what's perfect.
I actually had asked Lyndon, the path of it was I asked Lyndon, what's your contract with Steven look like? And he's like, oh, here's the thing. And I was like, well,
here's what it looks like.
And I had one with Gregory kind of half done. He's like, so I was just I'll just do a version of these two things together. Yeah. Then I was talking to Gregory. He's like, yeah, this is great for now, but then what's it going to look like when this happens?
And here's the thing. Okay, so if we're talking to a listener that is saying what is the purpose of a collaboration? The hope is you create a thing together.
Yeah.
You love what you created, and you both want to stand beside it every time it's mentioned.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
both want to be proud to be a part of that every time it's mentioned.
Yeah.
As soon as the ownership deal of the IP is disproportionate in the favor of one party, you're not both equally proud of it anymore. Because it doesn't behoove a person who only gets 10%
Yeah.
to bring it up in conversations with a producer, to share it in conversations with other publishers, because they don't get anything for that. It's not in their best interest. And unfortunately, but it's true, people tend to act in their own best interest. And so you can hack that right at the start by saying, let's share in the IP equally.
Yeah.
So if you're friends, don't be afraid to sign the contract before you do anything.
Yeah, now
Yeah,
IP and
that protects
payment
your
are
friendship.
separate lines in a contract.
Yeah.
The one person can be paid more at the onset than the other,
Yeah.
while both retain an equal share of the intellectual property,
Yeah.
right? And you can switch it so that, like,
But because of that, though, you can get in the weird. If you're not thinking through the long-term effects of this situation, this collaboration. What's it going to look like when we're both broke, and also what's it going to look like when we're both rich? You know, like you got to think like through the different scenarios and like how's it going to age potentially, because in that scenario, because you both have IP rights that are perhaps equal, but you may have disproportionate money investment. One person, if they are getting less money, could just be holding up exploitation of the rights. So it doesn't even make business sense necessarily, unless you're just doing a work for hire contract or something. Which then, again, like you say, the person's not invested in it necessarily.
But a work for hire contract,
it can work for you.
You might take because you A, need the money, or B, like the project, or both of those things, or like the people involved in the project, so you take the job anyway.
Yeah,
right?
There's nothing wrong with it.
But
it's just
2
like,
years later, when someone's like, "Hey, what books do you want to recommend are in this?" Because, let's say something practical. When you do media or you do any interviews or you're pushing any product, if you stay in publishing, then it's your work that you like the most, that you gain the most from, that you mention.
So I have a question. This is going to be a switch gears here, but I think it might help anybody who is just kind of getting into this idea for the first time. When do you call it on a working relationship? When's the best point?
I quit.
Well, on two people, if you're not getting along, like, so say you have an idea together and you're pushing it, but you just don't get along. Have you ever
Walked away.
walked away?
Yeah.
And like, is that okay to walk away?
It is, yeah. And what you have to say,
Yeah.
I've been in that position. I mean, now that I've been doing comics for a long time, both independent stuff and then more professional stuff. Especially when you're starting out, you end up starting tons of projects, right? That you just can't find the legs for. And I've had to walk away from a number of different projects where it's just...
Well, I'm talking specifically with a collaborator.
Yeah,
When the problem is the person.
Yeah, because when I first started in comics, I was doing the writing side more than the art. And so I was collaborating with artists more, right? Coming to them with the concept. And yeah, sometimes you have to realize that if it takes more energy to resolve yesterday's issues than you're putting into today's new page, it's time to call it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. That's been my litmus test. Like, you're talking about the project again, it's a new day, and you're having to resolve something from yesterday more than you're working on today's stuff. That's going to compound as the week, right?
Yeah.
Progresses, as the month progresses. Right.
I haven't run into that yet.
No.
Like with the
It's
people.
coming, just wait.
Yeah, with the people I've worked
Wait till
with.
Lyndon gets a couple
Couple
more
of
books
big
under
checks.
his- Yeah.
Yeah. Because with the people I've worked with, I could plus one all day. Like when Jonathan and I were talking about story ideas with the project we're working on, we were just texting back and forth. It's like, oh, what if they did this, or here's my idea. This has nothing to do with what we're doing right now, but like this is why I drew it this way, and they'd be like, oh my god, that's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. And so I haven't run into that yet, but I feel like that flow is something that just doesn't happen with a collaborator that you're not working well with.
I think it's a thing that's maybe more. We were kind of talking around this a little bit before we started recording, but I think it's kind of something that is maybe comes more along with people who are perhaps just less like they're too wrapped up in the project as their project, maybe. Like,
I
so
want to
like,
jump on this after.
sorry, was that?
Keep going.
But like, there's a so for example, like I really like it when like Gregory has an idea or you have an idea for something, because even like if it's different from what I was thinking, but part of that is like, oh, you know, it's a cool idea, I like the idea. Part of it's though also is like, well, if his idea ruins it, I could just do something else.
Yeah.
Like, worst case scenario, if we try that idea and it somehow ruins everything, well, then I'll just call it quits on this book and do a different thing.
You know
that's
what?
why you workshop the idea before you throw it
so
down,
it's like,
right?
it's important to me and it's a precious project, but and there's certain things I would say, no, that's a bad idea. But there's other things where it's like, I don't need to be precious about 80% of the idea. There's like 40% of it or whatever, or 20% of it. There's some percentage of things that like are the essential core of that idea, and as long as we don't touch that.
I have a lot to add to that, but Lyndon is.
But you know what I mean? Like, well, you, just as an example before we get to Lyndon's thing, you had that Forge idea.
I tried.
Okay, let's just go to Lyndon's. No, is it? But
As a writer with no
Collaborators let other collaborators speak.
yeah, yes.
as a writer with no.
So go ahead, Lyndon.
Thank you.
How many times I could cut him off while trying to make room for him?
Use it again.
As a writer with no illustrative ability, I've been listening to everyone speak here. I've been looking at my role in the books that I've been working on, and right now I'm working on 4 books: 2 with Steven, 1 with our friend Zach, and 1 with our friend Chris. And of those 4 books, 1 of them was my idea.
Right.
Now, if you think of the 3 books that we've done together, all of them are started with your idea.
It's true, but like you said before, it started
Yes.
with an idea that doesn't look anything like one.
No, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But Gregory made a good point earlier where he said you have to work with someone who is excited to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I found in my projects the best way to do the work, to have someone excited to do the work, is, you know, they are in every respect an equal member of, or they have an equal stake in coming up with the idea, creating the story. The one story that I came up with and pitched to a collaborator is the project that I'm doing with Zach. But Zach, you know, ironically or not ironically, is the only collaborator that I'm working with right now that I'm doing a full Marvel method style of writing with. So while the story idea was mine, Zach is coming up with the pacing of the story and the general creation of the storytelling. When we look at the books that you and I have done, or the book that Chris and I are doing, the idea, the initial nugget of the idea was not necessarily mine, but me and, say, you in the situation built on top of it to a degree where it is now both of our ideas, but it's still recognizable to both of us as being equal parts of us. And
Okay,
so,
How do you
I
let
was
go
gonna
of the
throw-
idea, right? Because
Yeah, you have to let it go.
Because like I took a while to learn that.
thanks, both of you.
Wait, is that GMB Chomichuk I hear talking? Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure he had his hand up next. All I'm saying is that while in a lot of the projects I'm very comfortable in sort of taking the lead, I am never interested in fully taking the driver's side, the driving wheel.
The thing I was going to say is that it comes from your point that you were making, John, about how you can, if the idea changes too much, you'll just make a different book. One of the things that I've found collaborating with some people is that if we're +1ing and the initial idea becomes so different, sometimes that is better. You're better off as a writer because you've gone and made a completely new thing with someone else, and that core thing that you were going to do, you can still do.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right?
Yeah.
It's
Changes
still
enough.
there to be done because it's changed so much, right? That now you can go back to the well again, essentially, and do the book again if you had to.
Yeah.
Right? So you take the momentum where it's going.
And it's just extra work. Like so the example I was going to use was this thing we're working on right now, right, is the Eye Collector issue 2. Well, we're kind of working on 3, but like we just were coming off working on 2. And you had a point where there's a point in the comic where the kid, this kid Nathan hides in his father's study, and he hides in the script. He hides in a closet. From the closet, he can see this like secret room that opens, and there's a forge inside. And you had the idea that, well, what if he just hides in the forge?
Yeah. Well,
And
okay.
then when you came to me with that, I was like, so first thing I do in that sort of scenario is I'm like, okay, let's quickly evaluate like what's his idea. And the first term for me that I evaluated on is like, is it more interesting than my initial idea? Like, is it so? Like, to me, it's like, well, closet is a normal place people hide in. Weird machine that you set a fire in is not. So I was like, immediately, it's a more objectively, it's a more interesting idea.
So here's a funny thing. So when I make a change or want to make a change in a script, so this is a good practical.
So you just go do it
collaborator
and then ask for forgiveness later?
So no, but
He
what I'll
actually
do.
brought this up before he had done it.
Yeah, before I decided to do it. But what I did was, I don't justify the change in the initial ask. I simply ask. So, like, I didn't say, here's all the reasons why I want to put him in the forge, which I had a long list. I simply said, I'd like to take out the closet and have him hide in the forge. Period. Is that okay? Right? Because then the reasons for no, in this case, because he is the lead writer, the reasons for no will come from his justification of how it supports the story. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Then I'll argue if I don't agree with those. But there's no point in arguing if his justification for keeping it is something I'll agree with.
Yeah.
Right? I do have reasons for changing it, which I know, and these were them as follows. We only had a few pages to get him from his room through a scary house to hide in a closet, to witness his dad take something out of a drawer, to then have another character enter into the scene, to then observe a scary thing, to then introduce the forge, and that's all within 6 pages of comics. It's a lot.
Sounds like what we had to do the other
Right?
day.
Too much.
Yeah.
Essentially, there were 2 characters conflicting for the same role in the story. The closet and the forge both had to be important visually. So I said to myself, well, there's room to hide in one.
No.
And get rid of the other character. I don't need the closet as a character. I have something you can hide in and put the character into it. And then the other real strong, my big advocator that I thought I could win him over with if I didn't agree with his ideas for keeping it the closet, was that we have a reoccurring thematic motif in the story of a crescent moon. And the doorway of the forge, which is round, when it's partially closed, the light coming through it would create a crescent to look through. So that visually I'd be able to reinforce a consistent visual theme. So these were sort of my... I didn't put any of that first. I didn't say, here's all the reasons why we have to change it. My idea is better. I simply stated what I wanted. If he had said no, and I had agreed with his reasons for the no, I would have just carried on and figured out how to put the closet in there. But when he was like, yeah, if it doesn't change the story too much, try it.
I think I actually looked at what some of this is a memory of when we were talking about changing the layout of the study overall. Mm-hmm. When we got to the forge, what you actually said was, I ditched the forge. I ditched this closet.
I ditched the closet.
I'm going to put him in the forge. And I said, whatever works.
Yeah. No, I hadn't done any of those
But we had
pages
talked
yet.
like that around the study earlier.
Yeah.
So,
That's true. That's true. We had already
so
had
you're conflating two things, but you're right. But that's exactly the approach. And I think, and when I get that text and I'm like, Gregory's like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Part of the thing that comes into play in this example specifically is like I've known you for what 15 years at this point.
Yeah, at least
15 years, and I've seen your stuff through those years.
Yeah.
And so like, by the time like we and I are working on the Eye Collector, it's like I kind of know what to like. I would be an idiot to like hand you a script and think, oh, Gregory's gonna
follow
that
it.
script.
Yeah.
When I was texting Lyndon a little while ago, I was like, and he's like, oh, he was changing the letters on page 9. He's like, oh, you really changed page 9. I'm like, well, Gregory didn't draw page 9. He just decided not to draw it. I'm like, but he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as I was
it.
looking through the script, it's like, oh, all the stuff on that page is actually just repeated on this later page.
Right.
So it makes perfect sense.
But I was reading through it and I'm like, this is just a new page. Do I need to do I need to bill him for another page? Like this isn't anything like it was. And then I looked through and I'm like, oh no, wait, this is just from later on. I just need to pull it forward instead.
It's actually not later on. It seems like it is because it's so redundant.
Yeah.
That it's all the same information.
But I'm pretty sure I didn't have to like recreate most of the word balloons. They already existed in later pages.
I think I deleted the later ones, but yeah.
So here's the real important thing, I think, guys, about why I've enjoyed iCollector and why specifically I like working with both of you, because we have both worked on other things before. I'm able to anticipate what you guys will do when a small change occurs. It's not going to rattle you to the point where you're like, I don't know what to do. You just read a little bit ahead and say, oh, I get it.
No,
this is repeated information.
This is just ridiculous.
Right? This is ridiculous. Right?
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Right? And because there is enough of a relationship, like we've had now for like the last 6 months, a pretty steady everyday text chain related to comics and the making of comics.
Yeah.
So we have we have a.
I'm gonna get an iPhone, okay?
But what I mean by that is, it's not like in this particular working environment that I'm incommunicado or unreachable. Or
Well, you're as close as any of us are.
Close.
Right?
As close as you can be.
As close as I
you're
can.
not.
If I could be completely unreachable for 6 months at a time, gentlemen, I'm sorry, I would be. But that's for my own mental health. It has nothing to do with you guys. But the point is that when you pick your collaborators, they should be able to talk shit about you like you guys are doing right now.
But it's also...
And it not make you upset when they're telling the truth. Right?
I kind of got something.
Oh no, you asked to start talking shit.
Talking shit about Lynn.
No, it's not actually talking shit. But it was just something that Lyndon said earlier that kind of like got me to think. Where the idea of like, so he mentioned that of our projects, like I technically came to him with the idea.
Whoops.
I just think that's a measure in ego. That's a lesson that a new creator could teach themselves when they're collaborating. I've had the thought sometimes where it's like, did I think of this? and like it's just a quick conversation where it's like, should I be like asking for more of this or something like that? And it's never becomes serious, but it's something where I feel like, I don't know, you have to work with yourself to realize like the idea is way beyond the thing that you ever started talking about, because that is a place I think people can get bogged down in, is the ownership of that original idea. And I think that is a point where you can get once you started collaborating with someone, where you start asking yourself who was first.
And I think it kills your career ultimately. It can make your career in some. It can really get the business down.
It can create a needless
it can kill
conflict,
you.
especially if you've pulled something together that's beyond, or even looking exactly like that original idea. If you've decided to take it to a collaborator and you've both been just droning on it and working really hard on it and really loving it,
I think it's
not your idea. It's not your idea
the
anymore.
Publisher can't work with the guy, who's working on the comic with you.
Who's actually excited about the concept.
Who's actually excited.
I mean,
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying, but like from my end, it ultimately just makes my job easier. Like I don't have to sell you an idea that you love. You already have an idea that you love. I get to now take that and build on top of it.
I guess what I'm saying is it's in a story breaking thing. I don't think it's ever about ownership of ownership of the person who goes, bald man named Dave in alley with werewolf. Like I don't think there's ever an ownership over that when you're breaking a story with someone.
Okay, there's a practical element here though. So if you're a person trying to make rent, trying to do all, just trying to live and do this, there are some knobs you can turn to have the mix the way you want it. So like one of the things that you can do, one of the reasons why I feel emboldened to make a change in a script page is because we have a 50-50 share in the IP. So if that's true, you have to reflect that in a story change, right? If, however, he has 90% of the IP and I have 10%, then I'm getting paid 3 times as much for my pages, and I will do exactly what I'm told. And that is how I
it's not
adjust
worth
it.
your time.
I
will
should
do-
clarify. This was for 50% IP ownership,
Right, yeah.
right?
So, but this
when
is-
there's a hierarchy, it's different.
Listen, if someone's learning from this, just saying like, where is what should I be asking for? How should I be doing it? One of the things you can do is say, let's say my page rate is, if we're going to share it, I can work for $200 a page. We're going to share it 50-50. But if you're going to make tons of changes and it has to be your way, every way, then I work for $600 a page. But you own it.
But at that point, it's not even worth your time to think of ideas that are cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it may seem like it is because I'm paying you 4 times as much.
No, it's not.
But it's not.
Yeah.
And so I think it's even weirdly like in my
paying to
best
shut
interest
that
to
part of
pay
your brain
you.
off.
It's in my best interest to give you rights. I think.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, we'll see in the long run. But I think, like personally, like even the financial end of it, to me, it's in my best interest to have you invested in the artistic process.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is like, it's just more work. Like in the end, it's just more work potentially.
Well, in
either you
turn-
make it better or you make more work for me.
Yeah.
Like worst case scenario, it's more work for me. So like,
And I
for
mean, there's an
example-
argument to be made that if you hadn't suggested the closet, I wouldn't have put him in the forge to begin with. Right? Like that, the one that got the other.
It is, and the crescents and stuff. Like I put all those.
Yeah, those
that
crescents
crescent
were
motif
there.
in
Also, that's your idea. Like
So
it gets really muddy.
It gets very
if you-
complicated to try to separate it.
Yeah.
But I just want to go back to like the really nuts and bolts of it is like when you come back and like turn in. It's a 22-page script that we're doing, so it's a 22-page comic, and you came back with 21 pages. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I've got to, because you've made a series of different changes, and it's resulted in, this one page being dropped, basically.
with an option that
Which-
two different areas could have an extra page.
Well, that's an option that I came up with. I'll
Yeah.
just point it out. So when I get like 21 pages back, and it's supposed to be 22, and I looked at it, I'm like, first thing I was like, okay, well, where did he drop a page? I looked at the page he dropped, and I looked at the script, and I was like, it makes sense to drop that page. And then I was like, okay, well, I need it to be 22 pages for a variety of reasons. One of which is an artistic reason of like,
Well,
it's
the
a
other
cool
one is
thing
it's
you
our
drew.
contractual obligation.
Well,
to fill.
there's a lot of reasons
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
But one is, so I'm like, okay, well, now I have to come up with where could a new page go and what should it be. So I was like, I came up with 2 places. I suggested one place. You came up with a better idea for a different place. I looked at them both. I thought, okay, actually, he's right. It should be here instead.
And this comes back around to
And
what
then I wrote that page.
So here's my thing. So I leave a gap, right?
Yeah.
Which I've
seen the gap.
Is knowingly left.
Yeah.
Right?
I've seen the missing page.
Yeah,
I've done the
But
letters.
It's going to be a better issue.
This is what I'm saying. It's not a
just more
a
work.
trick. It's not like, oh, I tried to hand in 21 pages. It was like, here's the 21 pages that tell the story of that script. Right? I did the story of that script essentially, as far as I'm concerned, in that 21 pages. There's room now for some other thing. It can be an expansion of an existing. Now, I didn't say this to you.
No, but
Right?
I know that is.
What I held back was if John. I made a list in my notes of 3 different places where I would put in an extra page. Right? The first one was like the very first page of the story. I thought I could redo page 1, right, very differently, and make it really interesting, and extend a last page and extend the crow sequence in it. Like for me, I had already done thumbnails of like, if he's like, oh my god, what have you done? I'd be like, here are 3 options which you can have by tomorrow, right? But he didn't. He's like, ponderous. Oh, this is better, that is better, that's not as good.
Well, to me, it's
Where
an
should we put it?
opportunity now to like rewrite the script, and I guess like, well, I have to
exactly
rewrite the
what
script.
I
Well, whatever. You.
The letterer loves re-lettering.
Now, I am the 3rd member
I
of
don't know
this
how you
party
feel
with
about
no
it.
ownership stake in this.
No,
So
you
you
feel
have to
bad.
get your toe.
I only get paid a page rate, and yes, that's exactly
worst
it.
case,
I will
I pay
do
you for the
whatever it
page
is
again.
that I'm told. But like,
Is how I'm thinking.
I'll look at the script, and the only time that I will not do what it says is when it physically does not work on the page anymore.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm just like, oh, this could look cool and goes along with what Jonathan's saying it should look like.
Yeah.
But I'm not out here making extensive revisions because that's not my job.
Now,
also
here's
not
the
worth your
thing,
time.
though. Yeah, I think there is a place. Maybe.
Well, I do make
clearly-
artistic decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
iCollector is not the project because it's already too far underway. But there is I think, an argument to be made to people making comics that the letterer should be in early. in the decision making of character. So once the characters are being established, I think a writer who is smart and has access to, like, there's so many people now who have these talents out there, to reach out to letterers and say, here are the character traits, show me some lettering that expresses these traits of these characters in a way that I'm not thinking of, that I can show the artist, right? There is a place for the letterer to also set a visual tone in the whole book. And the books that are done the best, the ones that you like kind of don't notice the lettering, some people say those are the best ones when you don't even realize it's been lettered. You could argue that that is incorrect. The best ones are when you look at it and you say, wow, if this word wasn't exactly in this place, the whole meaning of the page would be different.
I think it's a fine line, though, because there are lettering styles out there that are very flashy, and you notice the lettering and you can go, oh, that looks really cool. But if that look isn't sort of synonymous with how the art looks, then it's going to look out of place and not necessarily in a good way, even if the lettering on its own looks really cool.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of letterers on the internet that I like. I look at their style and I go, that looks awesome. I wish I could do that. Or I need to learn how to do that. But at the same time, I look at it and go, but I can't imagine ever using it in a book because it's too flashy. It jumps out too much.
Right.
Well, I always think of, we were talking earlier about Image Comics, and I always think about Tom Orzechowski and his letters for Spawn. The early Image Comics, that was one of the things that really leapt out to me. And that guy has
He's still doing those
He's
letters.
been on more Spawn comics than Todd McFarlane.
He's done every Spawn comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like that's an example where
Like,
it is
the whole run? He's done the whole run?
He's done the whole run. We
Is that
He broke
'cause
records.
They got into Guinness for the longest
Yeah, so
run.
he's
Got to be the longest run. Yeah, we were laughing that. Sorry, we'll get back to you, Jonathan.
that's my point.
Just nerding now. Just nerding.
I was laughing with Steven last week because I looked up, how do I apply to work for McFarlane Comics? And the guidelines are you have to physically mail them your portfolio to review.
Right.
And Steven's response was, what, are you going to try and get the one lettering job for the one comic from the one guy who's done it for 308 issues? Yeah, good luck.
Never know.
Get in line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just get yourself
need to get a name in there. Maybe I'll do backups.
He's going to retire one day.
Eventually.
Or the movie's going to break big and they're going to put 4 more books on the line and,
I really hope he's got an ownership stake at this point if he's been doing it for 30 years.
I bet he does.
Well, I wonder, at that point, like
Pure
you're saying,
speculation, but
I could see Todd McFarlane as a businessman allowing that.
what do you,
A version of an ownership stake.
Yeah.
the
Sub-ownership.
Royalties.
Yeah.
You lost it?
yeah, I lost.
it's going to be profound.
It was your
Oh, no, it can't be then.
But I was just saying, like, when it does, I feel like part of the collaboration process too for me is like when I sat down and wrote those scripts, I had at that point, I'd written this thing as a feature film. I'd written and thought about it a lot over like that long 15 years there. But I'd also at some point I'd settled on you doing it in my head. We had talked about it years and years and years ago, and you'd done like some stuff for it at that point and whatever. When it finally was like we were going to go and do it, like it was kind of a scenario where we had agreed to do it before I wrote the actual comic scripts.
Do you remember we were at Clementine's, or at least the way it hits in my memory is we were at Clementine's and you were sort of like, I'd like it to be you. I'm going to arrange it so that it can be you. And I said, well, I'm at a place right now where I'll only work on projects that I have a stake in and that I can change along the way. Like, I'm not interested in working on a project that is just the way you must do it, right? And so we had kind of had that conversation of like, you're going to have to let me do my thing sometimes. And,
But the other thing, though, that I was driving towards is when I sat down and wrote the scripts, I knew you were going to draw it. So I was literally sitting there thinking, okay, what would be cool for Gregory to draw?
Yeah.
Which is an important thing as a writer when you're dealing with
Not just like what would
artists.
look cool after he's drawn it.
What would he like to draw?
But what
Yeah.
would he like to draw?
Yeah,
Like
I do that too.
An eye collector.
When you...
eyeballs, Gregory likes, weird tentacles.
The sequence with the giant... Well, I made it a giant crow, but the crow over the
The river.
over the river of bones. I was like, yes, I can't wait to do this
It's a canyon
page.
filled with bones. With a
I was like, can't wait to make
crow,
this page.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the giant crow was for sure a holdover from everything I couldn't do in the Apocrypha book. There's a sequence with those big birds in it.
Well, and I'd seen that book, right?
Right.
So I've got an idea in my head. I've got all the stuff I've seen you do, and then I know you can do. I've got things I think you do well, and things I think you do less well. And like I'm sitting there writing,
Please
I'm sitting
elaborate.
there writing a script, and I'm like sitting there thinking, okay, well, how can I? In my head, it's like a checklist. Like, what's like the 20 things I know I would like to see Gregory draw,
There's only 20 things.
or whatever, you know. But it's like,
Probably, and of those 20,
and how can I
5
get
of
them
them I can do pretty
in as
good.
much
Yeah.
as possible?
Right? So they should come every 5 pages so that
Well, it's
when
like,
you
I'm not
flip
gonna
through
give
the
you-
book, it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
But for example, but I'm not going to give you a detailed background to draw,
Right.
right? I'm not.
I mean,
gonna,
I can do it, but I don't
You
want
could, but you don't want to. I've seen you do it, but you don't like to do it.
to. Okay, and here's
You
why.
like a bunch of mist.
Okay, so here's what it comes.
Indistinct shapes.
Yeah, here's what
Yeah.
it comes down to for me.
I'm not saying it as a criticism. I'm saying it's how I'm thinking. Like,
No, I accept it, but
this is like how
I think it's
I'm
important
thinking to
for
like,
someone listening
write for
to
you.
understand. Some people like to do backgrounds, super detailed, geographically sound, illustrative backgrounds. They enjoy it. They're good at it. They should keep doing that. This is not an indictment of background in comics. I, however,
It's a disproportionate payoff. Trust me.
yes, I find that if you want to do comics as a job,
Get over it.
the more detailed your backgrounds, the less your living wage becomes. So, horror books are great because you can get away with deep shadows and weird mist, right?
A lasso tool on Photoshop.
Right? You can do lots of stuff that allow you to more rapidly produce the same result. Also, if you've ever watched somebody read a comic, and I mean like really watch them read a comic,
Right over it.
it's 2 or 3 seconds per panel they're spending. Maybe 30 if they absolutely love you as
They
an
pour
artist,
over it, yeah.
right? But they're not spending the time for the reward.
I refer you to Jack Kirby, right? His
Yeah.
backgrounds are just fast and simple, but
like-
they're amazing.
When I
Tommy
wrote
Farley
for
draws
Steven,
backgrounds.
I wrote a piece
Really?
of business that these guys have drinking and talking, and I wrote a piece of business for him to draw while they're talking, where like the one guy like notices the other guy's his drink is empty, he sees the other guy's drink is still full, he swaps the drinks while they're talking about something else.
Right.
Because I knew like, oh, he'll draw that.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. He'll
Yeah.
have fun with something like that.
Yeah. Talking heads are the, like, I hate it.
You would never for you, I don't even write
quick, though.
dialogue half the time. It's like no letters, no letters, no letters.
That's my favorite thing on a page.
But
When
it's
I get a
like-
page from J-Ball and it
but
says no
for
letters,
Steven,
I'm like,
he's got a
great.
bunch of dialogue to
Right.
have to deal with, whether he likes it or not.
Steven's better with the, like, to
Talking
use the
heads.
term acting, right? Like,
Yeah.
your characters are better actors than my characters. And
Sure.
so,
Sure,
you'd
yeah.
want it, like, if I was writing for you, I would write character scenes like crazy because
Yeah.
it would be fun to watch them come
But
to
that's
life.
even why I'm not going to give you a comedy script.
Exactly.
And I
don't
went and
want it.
found Steven.
Yeah.
It's not that you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like you would.
It would
even-
take-
You'd be like, why
It
would
would
I?
just
Why
take
would
me
I want?
longer,
Yeah.
and the
you would just
longer
have
it
less
takes
fun.
me, the less fun I'm having.
Yeah.
Well, in
and-
Talking Head, it's just copy and paste. You just change the face, and it's like old G.I. Joe cartoons.
Yeah, well, G.I. Joe
Yeah.
cartoons. Well, it is like that.
Yeah.
But so
You'd rather draw a tentacle with an eyeball coming out of it.
well, maybe not
Right?
a tentacle. Okay, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
But I'd rather it. I tend to want to create mood more than I want to create a story beat, and it's constantly a fight for me when I'm illustrating to bring it to a story beat instead of just making a moody, emotive illustration.
So what would you tend to call that?
Is that because you come from a collage style, do you think?
I think so.
Because that's what collage is about, right? It's about creating.
You're like that. Yeah. You bugger. Witty points. You're ahead on all the wit points, Stephen.
I
do
think
okay.
like where it kind of comes down to in some ways though is like you gotta like just go into a collaboration thinking I'm gonna actually really honestly try to collaborate with
Yeah.
this person as opposed to like I'm gonna try to game this system of collaboration. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, and like, okay, if I want to write X, but that's not the kind of thing like you want to draw, I'll either try to sneak it past you,
Yeah.
or I'll like just come up with something else. Like
Issue 3 is this huge narrative shift
yeah.
to this other character, and it's like this little girl, and there's nothing I like drawing less
Yeah.
than little girls.
I'm not sure how you're gonna handle those.
Right?
pages
There's
there.
nothing more difficult. Like the work I did in this place, it was so hard to get right, and even then, like, the detractors of that work are like, why did you have him do a person that's supposed to be a little girl? It just doesn't cut. And so this is what you're saying about being a good collaborator. Everything in my being is like, let's figure out a way to get rid of issue 3. But the good collaborator in me is like, okay, issue 3 is where I will learn to be better at this.
Yeah.
Right?
you
For the
understand
sake
the
of my
reasons for it,
collaborator.
right?
I understand the reasons for it.
Like, you don't have
The
to explain
reasons-
them.
You don't have to understand. It makes such good sense in the story and in the change of the pace, and there's all these things that I don't have a good reason to change it.
Well, but
this is important for a collaborator to listen to.
Yeah.
My only good reason is my fear that I won't do it well, and that's not a good enough reason. Right? That's not a good enough reason. A good reason would be like, oh, here's a better point of view. Oh, here's a more interesting character to focus on. Oh, here's a thing that'll make the ending pay off more. There is no other path to the good ending of our story than doing issue 3 the way you've scripted.
Yeah, it has. I don't want to. But you see it, right?
I get it.
So like if I thought
But I don't want to do it.
If I thought
gonna.
you didn't see it, I would have put in the script the reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got them if you want to have them, but you can see it, I'm sure.
Well, I don't know what your scripts are like. You didn't do it for me anyway this way, but when Jay
When did I do a script for you?
phrases, we worked sort of together on
What will not last?
Oh yeah, well that's because we did a Marvel method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the beginning of each issue, you do something that's really, I think, good, and it's borrowed from other writers, but you do it in a good Jonathan way. Is sum up like the point I'm trying to make with this issue is, and you sort of do that as a paragraph at the beginning of each issue.
It's a Neil Gaiman technique
Right.
that I found somewhere.
Which sums up sort of what you're really after. So that if you have a disagreement of like when I'm going through the script, anything that I feel like changing or like adapting or maybe making it from a different point of view, my first stop is that first paragraph at the beginning of the issue. Is my change in conflict with this core idea of the issue? If the answer is no, it's not in conflict with it, then I feel emboldened to make that small change. If it is in conflict, then I text you and say, this is a change I want to make.
Sure.
Right? And that's just a really good habit, if there are writers listening to this, that stating your end goal thematically and emotionally allows your artist to understand when they're way off base and when they're not.
I'm a writer listening to this. I should start doing that.
The other thing I'm thinking, I got this technique
talk
from
so
Neil
much about
Gaiman,
it.
where
That's
he
true, yeah.
talks about, he writes his scripts apparently, he says, as a letter. He opens it as a letter, like, Dear, Gregory. What I'm thinking with this is blah, blah.
Scott
I was
Snyder
like,
does that too.
Yeah, so, I don't know where it comes from initially, but that's where I've kind of heard it. And the other thing I'm thinking as I'm doing this stuff and like writing for an art, for you in this example, but like writing for an artist, is I'm also thinking like, not only like what did they do well, what did they not do as well, what did they like doing, what did they hate doing, but I'm also thinking like, well, what do I think what I would like to see them do, but I don't really see them do a lot of.
Right.
Like, where can I push them, in other words? Like, to me, like, where it's going to be interesting for you and, like, ultimately, like, maybe the most rewarding for you would be, I think, if you're, like, not just drawing, like, if you're just kind of a little uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, you're a little on the edge.
Well, and here's
you're a
the
little
thing.
unsure if you can do X
With
here
this
and there.
third issue, right? Like the issue that preceded it, I went really wild with like weird conceptual stuff and
Issue
like
4 is gonna be like
colors,
that, too.
and issue 4 is going to be like that. So issue 3 is necessary to be a character, would be kind of something that Stephen would draw exceptionally well, right? Maybe we should switch out. Maybe I should sublet.
You're not getting out of those.
Maybe I should sublet issue
pages.
3 to have just Steve draw them.
So hearing you talk about issue 3, whenever, I don't know, for artists who are listening, whenever I come up against something like that, that's an impasse where it's like we're not getting around it.
Yeah.
It has to be drawn. I don't even like the way my brain goes. I just go, okay, this. I go, all right, this is just another tool I'm going to have at the end of this. Because multiple times I've been like, I don't know how to draw this. So then it's like
what?
What?
Yeah, give
Like
an
what?
example.
I'll give you an example.
Was it all the hats?
Oh, the hats. The hats was fun.
Person hats.
Curse you hats. Oh my god, Infinitum was my hat hill that I died on. God.
So the example would be like, so in our first book, I have one guy who almost looks black. And then in our next book, I was like, the person I pictured for the main character was the actor Sterling K. Brown. And then I'm like, okay, so I have to learn how to draw a whole new tool set of features for this. It's like, I want it to be this. I don't see a way around this. I have to learn how to do it. So you just start pulling up a bunch of references, do a bunch of practice, and
You
then
have to do the work.
yeah, and then you end up with a whole new tool. So that next time when a writer says, "Hey, this person, I want him to look this way, or I want her to look this way," you've already got that set up, or you can set that up because everybody looks different, and everything looks different. So you end up having to learn it eventually.
I had I had dinner with Howard Chaykin in L.A. when we were there for our speaking thing, and I asked him point blank. I'm like, okay, so Howard, your characters basically are always the same woman as the main female lead, and always the same man as the main male lead in every book you've done for years. Like, it's the same model, same like. He's like, yeah, I basically cast the same actor in all my films, and same actress in all my films, and I was kind of like, it's got to be more to it than that. And he said, I like it, so that's the only real reason that anyone needs to do anything is they like it.
Sure.
He said it doesn't hurt anyone,
I love it.
right?
Yeah.
So that's. I think he probably slid a "fuck you" as like number
Subtly.
3,
Yeah.
right? And that's just a Howard thing. But then the other thing he said is, from a practical position, for me as an artist trying to meet a deadline,
Yeah.
then I have tons of reference from every other book I've used to do the hard parts.
He's already learned it, yeah.
I've already learned it.
Yeah.
He's like, so you'll notice that the supporting characters range wildly.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, so that's where I learn new skills.
Yeah.
But when I'm telling someone the deadline I'm paraphrasing now, but when he would say, like, when I tell someone the deadline I can hit, I know it's because I have my reference for my leads, and everything else I can make up along the way and have fun doing. But when I have to do the work, the hard work, the grinding work, right? It's the same guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I agree with that. If you need for speed, but like, and when you are working, you need to move fast. But I feel like you got to expand it. I mean, obviously it works for him,
Right.
but as an artist, I feel like having a wider set of tools is better. So if you can sit and practice that.
Well, I mean, he's writing
Yeah.
and illustrating, so where he's, this is just me pontificating now, but I think personally where Chaykin is taking a lot of risks is in the subject of the stories themselves,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Those range wildly. He's not a one-hit wonder or a one-trick pony when it comes to the stories he will risk.
Okay. So he picks up the slack elsewhere.
The slack, I think, is picked up
Yeah.
elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lyndon, how do you approach your writing for different people? Because you're writing for so many different people at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you treat it differently in particular ways, or is there like a approach you're taking in general to all those situations?
It's about communication, primarily. Everyone's you got to kind of figure out what everyone's workflow is and how they like to work.
Workflow.
Well, for example,
for an hour about that.
Well, I mean, for example, Steven and I started working on our book, There Was Another Life, with a Marvel Method style after doing a full script for Infinite Universe. And just recently we talked about starting to transition back to full script on that project because it seemed to, facilitate a better, more progress with the book. Whereas Zach, who I'm doing Hero Man with, he has a lot of... We both love like the classic comic book style, and I can kind of trust that he has the story beats and general outline. He'll get everything that he needs, but also he brings in so much of his own stuff to it also.
Talented guy.
And Chris, I know. I mean, you've seen his art style. It's out there. It's different. It's not the kind of house style book that you're going to pick up anywhere, and that's great. The script that I gave him was a full script, including the story beats and the dialogue. But maybe, I mean, Stephen can probably attest to this. When I hand over a full script to someone, I'm not super bogged down by the layouts or the compositions. I provide a panel and what I imagine has to happen in that panel, and that's really it.
Like, I mean, the dialogue's there, but what I would say is you're super open to, like, if I'm drawing this and I look at your guidelines for the page, I'm like, that doesn't work. Or like, I don't see how this works, or this can work in less panels, or whatever it might be. Yeah. Just toss it to them, and we have a discussion about it. Like, I mean,
I'm not
at least that's how we work. I don't know how it is with everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an illustrator, so I'm always going to defer illustration issues to the artist, as long as what they're proposing is still in line with kind of the general feeling of the story at that point. So if you need to cut out 3 or 4 panels, but the same thing is happening, essentially, that doesn't really bother me. So as a writer, I think, and this comes back down to even what you were saying, what we've kind of been talking around all night, is that as a writer, you need to be flexible and yielding, and realize that the ideas you have and the script that you're providing isn't, scripture, or whatever the correct term you want to use. I've done enough freelance projects now with writers and artists where I've seen writers who sort of get married to their idea and don't want it changed, and feel that the art should reflect what was in their head, and that doesn't really work in this medium. Comics is so collaborative that you're only going to enrich and enhance your final product by listening to the people that you're working with and making sure that everyone is just as happy as you are to be working on it.
The flip there is that you can be a megalomaniac and make comics, but then you'd better also be very well funded.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like, there are lots of, if you're out there and you have a deep bank account or a really big publishing deal and you want it exactly your way and you're willing to pay people for their time, you can get exactly your way out.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
But if there's any stake from the creative forces at play, then it has to be that give and take. Like, if you're sharing in what could be the long-term life of that project, it should, it should reflect the whole thing.
And just to hop into the Wayback Machine for a moment, Jonathan, had initially asked how Gregory and I started working together. And the short version of that story is, I think, 1, I didn't harass him too much, just a little bit. And 2, I was just kind of around. But no,
aren't those the same thing?
No, not the same thing. But
opposite things.
So I've been sitting here and thinking about it since you first asked, and I mean, Gregory used to be a teacher and was a teacher at the high school that I went to. That I didn't take any of his classes, but I ran into him one year on the convention circuit here in Winnipeg, and I said, how do I make comics? Which is what I'm sure he gets asked 1,000 times at every convention that he goes to. And what he did was he told me to read Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics and to look at how a script is made. And if I did all of those things, then he would look at it and tell me what he thought. And
write something.
Yeah.
Write something.
So,
not your idea, but the script.
Yeah. So this is while I was bartending with Steve at the same time. I wrote a script. It wasn't very good. A bunch of talking heads. Kind of dark, kind of hoary. Totally besides the point. I met Gregory at a restaurant in the Village here in Winnipeg. And he was sitting with some other guy who was slightly older than I was. And he was talking about how... You two were talking about doing a project together, and the other guy was saying that he was working at a video game company at the time, and they were sharing sketches of some robot and a kid, and talking about this book that they were planning out. and I didn't know who this other guy was.
This is Justin.
This is Justin Curry. Yeah,
this is us doing
and I'm assuming
Justin Curry.
during the early stages of Cassie and Tom.
That's right.
This would have been in 2013.
Yeah.
And
well, that was right around the time where we turned a single black panel into a 2-page spread of just pitch black. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about it and we talked about the script, and it was going to be a lot of work because I'd never done comics before. So I kind of walked away from it, which was fine, and went back to working at the bar with Steven, and we started talking comics, and I was like, oh yeah, do you know Gregory Chomichuk? He was a high school teacher that I went to school with, and he does cons, and I was talking to him at the show, and Steven was like, yeah, he actually came and spoke to my class at Red River.
I wasn't there.
But but he was in it. Yeah.
Skipping school.
No.
And so we went to San Diego Comic-Con and Steven and I went to San Diego Comic-Con and said we wanted to make a comic. We didn't make a comic, but I went away for school, and Justin and Gregory decided that they were going to run a workshop for making comics, and so I passed it along to Steven, and Steven signed up for it and took the workshop, and then we decided that we were going to make a comic, and decided that we would ask for as much advice as we could possibly get from Gregory and Justin, and in the process of doing that, there was a project that you were working on with Chadwick.
That's right.
And you said you needed a letterer really quickly, and I was learning how to letter for Infinite Universe.
Yeah, and that was it. So a couple of things I want to clarify for this. When I was teaching, I was producing a book or two a year, either producing and or publishing a book or two a year every year for the 10 years that I was teaching. And so when I made the break from teaching into comics and illustration full time, it's because I had this sort of backlist to stand on. And so all that time I was teaching, I was also spending my nights, just like you guys as bartenders, right, making books, right, figuring that stuff out. But when Chadwick, he said, I want to collaborate with you on this project. Could you do it?
Yeah.
We both had, we were working with a publisher that kind of was sucking for both of us, so we had bonded over that. And I said to him, I don't really have a lot of time to do anything that's really specifically scripted. So I'll do it if I can you give me the characters, I'll draw this character, scenario, and outcome that I feel will be fun to draw in those few pages. It's a really short story. And then you come in and write to my illustrations. Kind of like a reverse, or kind of like what Stan and Jack did.
More method, yeah.
But Stan took all the credit for it. We did it
Classic.
that way. And so I even went so far as to put in where the bubbles would be.
You did with the balloons.
Right? I worked the balloons into the art so that they weren't mutable. It was if someone's going to say something, this is where they're going to say it. I don't know.
What are you telling me about?
I'm not in charge of what they say, but this is where they're going to say it. So that I felt like I was telling a story. Visually, completely telling the story.
Taking the reins on.
Then I gave it to Chadwick, and he was like, man, I've never written so specifically to a set of art before. This is kind of fun. And then I knew that you were wanting, and this would be a way for us all. I was donating my time, Chadwick was donating his time. Yeah. So since we were all doing that, it didn't seem like too much of an ask on 4 pages, 5 pages?
3 pages, I think.
3 pages.
Was it?
Yeah, because it's to the page turn. I think you're right. It's 3 pages. Not a big ask to ask a letterer to come in and do what is essentially 300-400 words.
Yeah.
Right, over 3 pages.
Yeah.
To donate that time. Was for a project we were all working on.
I think you offered to pay me, actually.
Yeah, but I offered to pay you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I knew Chadwick couldn't, but I didn't want it to be hey, come and do free work, kid.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you're going to learn...
I did it. I wanted to do it for free, but...
Well, but I think something that's kind of being skipped over here that's really important is the idea that, it's a bunch of people kind of who are running into each other because they're doing things.
Yeah.
And I think like when I first met, if I recall correctly, the first time I met Linda was at a workshop you were and Justin and Samantha were running.
Yeah.
And Lyndon was there, and at one point Lyndon, you or Lyndon somebody mentioned that he mentioned that he'd done this Infinite Universe book.
Yeah.
And I immediately, my personal rule, so I shouldn't say this on a podcast.
So don't say it. Stop right now.
My personal rule is if somebody tries to sell, mentions their book or has it in their hand, I'll buy it from them if they actually have
it. It's so funny you say that because that is 100% how you operate, and I've always
have it in
thought,
their hand,
what a champion of every author Jonathan is.
We'll just buy it, yeah.
I'll just instantly buy it.
I'll buy that. You always say. Someone's like, oh yeah, I have a copy of it. Do you have a copy?
If they say they have it, if they are making even the half-hearted attempt to sell it to me, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
You're a true patron of the
bought
artist.
it on the spot.
I bought it on the spot. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't care what it was. But the reason I do that is there's a couple of reasons for that. So one reason is this altruistic reason of I just want, maybe that person will never sell another book.
Yeah. You want to support them the way you wish you were supported.
Because they did something.
Yeah.
They're not talking about a book that they might do.
Yeah.
They did it. They did that book.
Yeah.
And the other thing, though, is a purely selfish reason, which is I'm like, let me buy this book, see this guy is good at lettering.
Or writing, or drawing, or whatever.
Or drawing, or whatever.
He'd be cheap.
I mean,
It's good.
I'm less cheap now.
Well, yes, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's an altruistic reason, which is like a philosophical reason, but there's also like just a practical reason.
Yeah, you're
I want to
building
know
your work pool,
who
basically.
around me is doing stuff. And when you and I are talking at iCollector,
Yeah.
so I mean it's kind of ridiculous for me to come, if you look objectively at it, for me to expect you to want to do anything with the iCollector, given that you at that point had done like 17 books and I literally written no comic strips.
Never done comics
The
before.
iCollector is the first comic strips I've ever written.
Yeah.
But I know that on one level in your head you're like, well, John will actually do something.
Okay, but
Script.
there's a practical side. Here's again a collaboration point. We had collaborated on other things at that point.
Yeah.
We had
Smaller
worked
things.
on film treatments together. We had worked on smaller things. I knew that you are a person that if you have decided to accomplish something, it will get finished.
Yeah.
To what degree the world will love it is never up to us, right? You have to have finished things in order for them to be shown to people. So when it's the same thing the advice I gave to you was make something and then I'll look at it. I don't want to talk about how great your idea is.
Yeah.
Show me what it is, and then we'll talk about it.
Well, I mean, that was the kernel of how Steven and I finished Infinite Universe. Like, we made it and published it because our belief was that no one was going to take us seriously about making something until we had made something.
True.
Zach Sigerson from that same thing was the same thing.
Yeah.
Then it was like text us, hey, Zach Sigerson from that group. Remember he's got this book. I'd go tell him if he sends me an email, ask me to buy the book, tell me about the book, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
And I did not go and buy it.
Yeah.
I waited for I think it was like quite a while. It was like a month or something, or 2 months maybe. But then he finally he's like, hey, a while back Lennon told me I'm emailing you.
Yeah.
Here's the link. You can buy
Yes.
the book. And I went and instantly bought it, and I've got a copy at home because that's the rule. I want to know who's doing things, and I want to reward people around me for doing things.
So I think when we look at the general question that you brought up, which is like, how do you find a collaborator? It feels as though it has like the best. Yeah, you can pay someone, but the best relationships that I have with other people or people that I've worked with are the relationships that have almost come up organically. You can approach someone because you want something, or you can approach someone because you want to support the community, you want to support them, and you just kind of want to be in that circle. And it feels as though the longer lasting relationships are the second of those two options. I know that I joked about how Gregory and I have worked together because I was there, but to some degree,
that's true.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah.
Like Gregory was always busy doing stuff because that's his life. And Steven and I started making things, and I kept making things. And then it was, hey, here's 3 pages. Can you do this really quickly? And I think I got it back to you in like 3 hours type thing.
Yeah, you did it real fast, and then you made adjustments. That's mostly how I remember it, is that you got right to it, and then when Chadwick had some changes to be made, you just made them without any fuss or complaint. And then it was like this little, it becomes a mark on the wall of like, okay, there is a reliable person. Right?
Well, I remember just before the COVID times, you and Justin in the
Before
studio.
the COVID time.
So I was spending
Is that how we're going to talk about this
BC
now?
before
I was
COVID.
spending a lot of time in your
it.
studio, you and Justin's studio. And, people are coming in, people are going out. There's a lot of people kind of moving in and out of the studio. And it's always the same conversation. It's like, people are always talking about things. And it's like Justin's on the phone, somebody calls them, they're talking about things. Like, oh, what's that project going on? Well, they're talking about this, but, we'll see what happens. That's the thing. Like, we'll see if they do it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see who's real,
Yeah.
It's kind of what it is. And I think, like, in some ways, the way I would sum it up, perhaps, if we want to, like, start to wind towards an ending here, I think maybe the, like, philosophy of it in some ways is if you want a collaborator, you have to kind of be a collaborator.
Yeah.
You got to have that honest spirit of collaboration and like honestly want to collaborate and not just have your way and not just pull rank or whatever. Like to really get something out of it in a way that's producing something good, you have to kind of go into it with that approach. And so I think it's in some ways like it's that kind of we were kind of joking, making fun of The Secret earlier, but it is kind of like The Secret in the sense of like you got to like.
Not in the magical thinking way.
Not in the magical thinking way, but in that
you don't
sort of
vibrate
attitude
yourself
of
into
like
another you.
But that attitude of like, if I'm just willing and open to do a real and true collaboration and I'm doing things, people can tell that I'm doing, and I would be maybe a good person to collaborate with.
Right.
And my deal that we're hammering out is reflecting that before we even start. Like there's just, all the signs are there, that I would be worth collaborating with in various ways.
Something to add too that like you guys have all made fun of me for being hard to reach or being too busy in this podcast, but one of the things that
compared to us,
fun of you.
I found it's good.
It's admirable.
Well,
We're jealous. We're envious.
Yeah.
here's something that is also practical. For every 10 projects that I fall in love with and I want to happen, 9 of them don't happen, whether you're collaborating or not. And they start. And so you have to be able to, if you're collaborating often and you want to do this on the regular, you have to be a person that generates lots of ideas that you completely love and can let die in order to make a living at it. Right? If you want to just make things, you can do it on the side. You can have any job you want, and you can put out a book or two a year, make no money from it, and it's just a thing you love, and there is nothing wrong with that. It's 100% valid. In fact, maybe more valid than doing it commercially. But when I made the break to say this is my now full-time living, I'm going to support my family with this, I had to ratchet up the number of times my heart got broken every week, every month, every year for a project that isn't going to happen, that you have to have the enthusiasm to make almost happen, right? And so there is it's not easy to collaborate. People will always talk about the successful collaborations because they're easy. They seem like effortless and they give back so much. Unsuccessful collaborations take a lot away from you. And you have to figure out what things outside of your life creatively refill that bucket, refill that well. Because you got to go there all the time. And you got to figure out what those things are, or you're not going to be a good collaborator.
I think to add to that, I agree with it. But I think when you're looking at the best collaborations or how someone should look at a collaboration when they're coming from outside of this industry and trying to enter into it, is that when a collaboration goes well, or you're truly invested in this community or the making comics community, on some level your aim should be to lift others up along with your own rise.
Sure, yeah.
And because that's how we make it along. The number of times that I'll see, an opportunity that isn't right for me, but I'll pass it along to someone that I think it would be better suited for. You lose track of them, and you hope that that's reciprocal. And most of the time it is reciprocal if the people that you're surrounding yourself with are, good quality people. So I think when someone is entering into this, that's really what they should be looking out for. It shouldn't be, how do I make this thing that I want to make? Like, yes, that may come along, but one of the things that you should be focusing on is how can I help the other people that are trying to do this? And how can I do what I can to help others and just hope that they're going to do the same thing for me when that opportunity comes around.
And I'll add my thing to that is a lot of people will look at their location as a flaw in their ability to get something going or find somebody to go with. But we didn't leave Winnipeg, and there's a lot of people here who we work with, who we can talk with, who have great ideas. You can just look to your left at your best friend who you go to the movies with all the time, who might be sitting there at home trying to brew up an idea for a book that you want to draw. So, and then your community now, in this day and age, has expanded to the internet. Mm-hmm. And there's always going to be someone there. You just got to float your idea and see who wants to add to it. That's what I would say.
J-Ball?
Any last words, anybody, about
go make
being
comics.
awesome?
Yeah,
Just make stuff.
Go do stuff
all the time.
Do stuff and don't be selfish.
Yeah.
Do stuff and don't be selfish.
Yeah.
And keep writing the wrong way. You cut that out if it's Super Bowl.